Yes, welcome in. Badgers have lost 9 straight Big Ten games after falling to Ohio State, 34 to nothing. I don't know that anything we saw yesterday was entirely surprising. This is not like last week where you were expecting them to put up a fight and be in the game against Iowa, and then they just got blown off the field. This one was a little bit different. You were expecting what happened, and what happened was exactly what we all thought coming into the game. However, we do need to talk about it. We'll talk about what went right, talk about what went wrong. We'll get into some listener questions as well. Also talk some big picture stuff because there was some big picture stuff to talk about coming out of that game with some different reporting. So, Jesse, again, as I said, not overly surprised in what we saw yesterday.
Right. That's why I'm not going to sit here and be outraged about what happened, because this is exactly what everybody thought was going to happen. I almost feel foolish for thinking Wisconsin was going to score a touchdown when we made our predictions. I said Ohio State would win 38-7, and my assumption was something fluky would happen along the way or there'd be a mistake. And Ohio State is just too good. As Luke Fickell said after the game, probably the best team that he's faced. Now, they've played some really good teams here, but that is an excellent Ohio State team. And it's just a sad state of affairs for Wisconsin football. It's tough for anybody who's still in the stands to watch. It's certainly difficult for the staff and the players. And it's hard to cover because it's kind of the same thing over and over. It's a broken record, and we'll get into all of it. But the offense is just so inept that as soon as Ohio State scored that 33-yard touchdown, you just knew the game was over, because the Badgers do not have what it takes to put enough points on the board. And obviously, Ohio State is looking like a national title contender and in prime position to defend its national championship from a year ago, while Wisconsin is just still on the list of worst teams in the Big Ten. It's a short list, but Wisconsin is firmly at the top of the list or alongside Purdue. It's a sorry state of affairs.
Yeah, and again, it's not just next to Purdue. I would probably take Purdue at this point because their offense can actually score points. It's one of the worst Power 4 teams in the country. I mean,
yes,
it is putting up a argument for that. Absolutely, offensively especially. I think the defense had its moments on Saturday. I thought they fought their butts off, and they just up against, as Luke Fickell said, one of the best teams he's had, and or one of the best teams he's prepared against, and also a wide receiver core that he said might be the best that he's ever seen, which is saying something considering some of the offenses that he played against, including LSU with Jamar Chase and all those guys. So it is an absolute dumpster fire on offense, and we'll have to jump into all of it here. Yes, we'll start with what went right. And for those that are watching, again, if you are listening to this, you can watch it up on our YouTube channel. Just search for the Camp Badgers and you'll find it, and hit the subscribe button because that'll help us. And also all of Jesse's work up at BadgerConnect.com. Check that out as well. Well, what right? If you are watching this, you can see on the screen, it's a picture of Christian Allegro. And I'm not saying what went right. This was not necessarily a positive, but when I think about the game, it will probably be the fact that we learned afterwards that Christian Allegro broke his arm, got it casted up, and came back in. And the fight that shows for one guy that he is still bought in, even though a lot of people think that the entire team is checked out. I think that is something that we at least need to hold up and say, not everyone thinks everything's lost. This guy's out there playing with a broken arm.
Luke wanted to make a point in his post-game press conference while acknowledging that Ohio State obviously dominated Wisconsin, that he feels that there are positive things, and he cited Christian as an example of guys who are still going out there to fight. You mentioned Christian gets hurt, comes out with the cast, and once he's back on the field, stays in there the rest of the game, ends up with 6 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. And I think that does show you that there is still a level of care among these players. And that's what Luke is looking for as he tries to build this into the future, assuming that there is a future here. And obviously that's part of the big picture questions as well. But he went down the list of a few different guys, talked about some of the younger players. Cooper Catalano is getting a lot of run. He ends up leading the team with 8 tackles. Mason Posa goes in there, and he had been practicing the star linebacker role, and they put him somewhere else, and he goes out there, and Luke was pleased with that performance. Sean West, a punter who we hadn't seen at all, ends up averaging 56 yards a punt, and then has the fake that wasn't planned apparently, but still gets 20 yards on a 3rd and 19. And, I wrote about this in my story off the game. This stuff is important. And when you're looking or grasping at straws to build on something, this is what you cite. The problem, I suppose, is that it hasn't changed the results on the field and that Wisconsin is nowhere close. But again, when you are in this position and you're looking for something to hold on to, it's what guys are still with us, what guys want to be a part of this program, because this goes to the bigger picture. And we get asked this pretty much every week. And it made more sense perhaps after the Iowa game. Well, have the players checked out? Have they quit on Luke Fickell? Have they quit on this program? And this is an example why that, they haven't, or at least some people haven't. It's, again, hard to get into the minds of everybody. But I thought it was interesting because Daryl Peterson said after the game, one of the things that Luke had said to the players throughout the week is another mantra, but it was not dead, can't quit. And Daryl said he really internalized that and tried to take it to his position group, tried to take it to the whole team, because Daryl is obviously one of the leaders of this group. And that's essentially what we're hearing from players after the game, because what else is there to say and what else can they do? You can go one of two ways. You either quit and give up, or you just keep showing up. And I realize that's a tremendously low bar, but let's be honest, the bar right now is very low in terms of what we've seen on the field, and they have to keep showing up and hoping something's going to be different. But the building blocks are guys haven't quit. I just don't know exactly what that means in terms of changing anything we've seen, because nothing's been different.
Yeah. Emilio Agard also got obviously plenty of run,
Yes.
as did Cairo Skanes after Ricardo Hallman went out. So young guys getting opportunities in certain places, and those are the guys that Luke Fickell wants to grab onto and build around, I guess, would be, I think, what he said. He said build the culture and that type of stuff. We saw both on the offensive line as well, with Emerson Mandel's been the starting right tackle. Colin Cubberley came in after Kerry Kadanko went down, so you had him at right guard. Those are two young guys that have started to play a lot of football and are going to be playing a lot of football. We got to see, it certainly went out early, but Dylan Jones running hard, I guess. And then at the end of the game, certainly Gideon Atuka looks the part as well. He helped them avoid some really, really bad history with his runs late in that game. We had I got a lot of insult stats to share, but there was a lot more before that last drive. So a positive for him as well. I feel like we spent a little bit too much time on what went right already, so we'll move on and get to what went wrong. Well, they didn't score again. That was a bit of an issue, I would suggest. Even Luke Fickell agreed to that. He said, probably the biggest thing is, that we didn't score. I certainly would agree with that. They have now gone back-to-back weeks without scoring for the first time since 1977. They've gone back-to-back weeks scoring at home for the first time since 1968. The offense is not good. Are we on the same page with that one? I mean, they're averaging 5 points a game in Big Ten play. And and now they go to Oregon, where I think another shutout is absolutely possible. So this is very tough times for Wisconsin offense that we thought had been bad the last 2 years, and they're showing us that they are even worse.
Yeah, not good is probably the nicest way you can put it. And when you're going to start with what went wrong, of course, it has to be offensively. And it's not like the defense did great. Certainly, Ohio State put up a ton of numbers, but this offense has just been awful to watch. They came into this, we knew it was going to be a challenge. Ohio State came into this game with the number one scoring defense in the country. Wisconsin came into this with the worst scoring offense among all Power 4 teams. There were just a handful of group of 5 teams that were worse. And the Badgers didn't do anything until that last drive, really. At that point, Wisconsin had 94 yards of total offense and got 50 yards on the final drive when the game was over. And they crossed midfield once before then, if I'm not mistaken, and just took themselves right out of a position to even kick a field goal. They can't run the ball. It doesn't help to have injuries. Like, yes, we need to acknowledge, and you start with quarterback, but at running back, Darian Dupree was out. Dylan Jones got hurt. Cade Yakameli was banged up, at least briefly. So Gideon Natuka was the top option as your fourth-string running back. But it hasn't mattered who they've put in there. They're averaging 3.1 yards per carry. This offense right now is averaging 13.3 points per game, which is on pace to be the worst Wisconsin has had since Barry Alvarez's first season in 1990, if I'm not mistaken. And you mentioned some of these stats, a back-to-back shutouts for the first time since 1977. This was, what did we talk about coming into this game? Like, we were trying to be realistic. What's best case scenario? Don't have the game be over at halftime. And the game was over in the first quarter because Ohio State took a 17-0 lead. But this is the fourth time during this 5-game losing streak where Wisconsin has been scoreless at the half. 21-0 against Alabama, 20-0 against Maryland, 23-0 against Iowa. Ohio State was up 24-0, I believe. It's hard to keep track of all the points. Not difficult to keep track of the lack of points on Wisconsin's side, but it's just they can't do anything right. They cannot move the ball. The quarterback situation is awful right now. Billy Edwards Jr.'s timeline for a return remains uncertain. And because of that, you've got guys playing quarterback right now that if there was anybody else who could play, I feel like they would put in there. Hunter Simmons didn't do anything. And I realize they're playing a great defense, but 6 for 12 for 54 yards, no touchdowns, and the interception wasn't his fault. Cade Yakameli just dropped it. It went right in the air. Ohio State picks it off, gets a field goal, and it's 10-0. You put Danny O'Neal in there. He has one completed pass for -5 yards. I put this stat in the story, but the last 2 games Wisconsin has played, they've had fewer passing yards than Julian Sayin had on the first quarter against Wisconsin. So there's just absolutely zero going right and no reason to believe that anything's going to change this season.
Zero reason for anything to believe anything's going to change. The 46 yards, the 49 yards passing that they had in that game, the fewest in a game since 2014. However, and this was the case with most of these passing stats that I was able to find, they had no reason to pass in some of these games. The 46 yards that came in 2014 was against Nebraska when they ran for 581 yards. Before that, I mean, they had 50 against LSU earlier that season. That was the Tanner McAvoy game. He still ran for 268 yards. I went back and just had to go. I think I had to go all the way back to 1998 to find a number that was lower, that in a game where they probably wish they could have been able to pass because they weren't necessarily just running it down their throats. But even this game was not that bad. And that was against Purdue in 1998, the night the jump around started. They had 44 yards passing in that game. They ran for 185 yards, but it was 3.5 yards a carry. So you would have thought that they would have liked to have been able to pass it a little bit in that game. But the passing game is just so anemic. And that was the thing that Luke Fickell said. That's the reason I started Hunter Simmons. Like, it was, we need to be able to pass the ball. We need to be able to do some things down the field. And okay, he's got the arm, I guess, but it just, everything has been bad, very bad. And I don't know, you're right. It's certainly not getting better this year. And I don't know exactly whether Billy Edwards Jr. would solve the problem either. My guess is he wouldn't. This is not just simply a quarterback problem. It's an offense problem.
Very much so. And you saw even, well, the first play was a jet sweep, right, to Dylan Jones around the edge. And this is what happens when you play great teams. Ohio State is super fast and closed it off. And like, you just knew from the first play, Wisconsin has no chance.
Yeah. I know you said that. You said that in the moment too. And I don't disagree that Ohio State has all the speed in the world. That play hasn't worked all year.
No.
It's not like it's just against Ohio State that's not working. Didn't work against Maryland, didn't work against Michigan, didn't work against Iowa, didn't work against anybody. So I shouldn't say it. It did work against Middle Tennessee State when it was the wide receivers that were running it. So yes, that is a long forgotten memory, however. And whether it's been Ohio State or any other team, that play has not worked, because none of their plays have worked very well here when the game is still in doubt and they actually have their first team players on the field, the other team, that is. So yeah, 129 to 17 in the last, I think it's now 7 games in the first half.
Yeah, this season they've been outscored 101 to 24 in the first half of games, and the points came very early, obviously. It's just, I mean, I don't know what can be said that we haven't said already, but it's just depressing to watch a team and know that by the time you get to half, the game is probably going to be over more often than not.
Yeah. And you saw that apathy in the stands. That was as and they can talk about what attendance was. They said it like 72,000. Give me a break. It was not even anywhere close to that. We'll see what the scan number looks like, but if it wasn't for Ohio State fans, that place would not have been anywhere close to the number that it actually ended up being. There were a ton of Ohio State fans there, as you would expect, as the number one team in the country, and an opportunity to get tickets for $5. I mean, why wouldn't you jump on that? But the apathy, I think, has set in among some of the fan base. The people that showed up, certainly there was less booing than there had been the last few games, because I think the people that are showing up are the ones that are diehards no matter what. And there's not going to be a ton of booing. However, the student section, whatever was there, which was the smallest student section I can remember in quite some time as well, some boos, fire Fickell. The highlight of the day probably came in the crowd when they're a section full of guys. And I'm sure it was a bunch of students, but I'm sure it was a bunch of people from across the stadium ended up in the student section, shirts off, waving their shirts, and you were completely lost. Like, you were like, what the hell is this? I have no what is going on here? And it was it was a copy of what happened at Oklahoma State last week, where a guy just by himself started twirling his shirt, and people converged from all over the stadium, or guys all over the stadium converged and started doing that. That Oklahoma State team, certainly in the running with Wisconsin for the worst Power 4 team in the country this year. They have been very bad. And I don't know that they're going to be getting better anytime soon. They actually obviously fired their coach. They have lost 14 straight in conference in the Big 12. They've lost 14 straight games. Mississippi State currently at 15 straight in the conference. Down in the SEC, Purdue's at 13 straight. Kentucky's at 10 straight in the SEC. Wisconsin at 9. So not too far away from some of these other very poor programs at this moment.
So. Yes, I was baffled by what was happening. So, but if you're looking for highlights, at least there were people still there in the third quarter, not by the fourth quarter. I mean, is it bleaker than a week ago against Iowa? I mean, there's really no point to stay at that point, but it's just, it's not great. And I feel like is there anything offensively we've missed? Because defensively, it's not like the performance was great, but when juxtaposed against the offense, at least they were able to get a couple stops.
And Julian Sain, he ended up completing 36 of 42, but there were times there that it was just like, is he ever going to miss a pass? And I will give Ohio State's wide receivers a ton of credit. Like, some of the catches that they made, the first touchdown catch was insane from Carnell Tate, a guy who's likely going to be the first. I mean, he's top 3 wide receiver in the draft coming up. And he's not even probably the best wide receiver on the team, with Jeremiah Smith still there. And he wasn't as, I guess, involved as he has been as he was last year in all of the games. But Carnell Tate is insane. And all those wide receivers are insane. They made every play that you were hoping. They made every play they needed to make. Like, anytime, and some of the coverage was right there, and it just did not matter. Those wide receivers are fantastic. It's the best wide receiver room in the country, and I understand where Luke Fickell's coming from in terms of the best wide receiver group he's ever faced. That's right there. But Julian Sain had all day and was throwing to guys in large cases wide open, and that is continued to be an issue. I mean, I guess if we want to do one positive, I thought they did stop the run better, certainly, than the week before. But Ohio State's running game is not something that anybody's necessarily been very impressed with this year. But Wisconsin, you only gave up 3.5 yards a carry and held them under 100 yards, and that's all good. But when you give up 393 yards to Julian Sain in that passing attack, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking for positives, I thought the defensive line had its moments. Ben Barton got in there and broke up a pass. Brandon Lane got in there and had a nice pressure, but in totality, you knew Wisconsin's defense was up against it. And of course, Ohio State has two future first round NFL draft picks. Julian Sain was a former 5-star quarterback. And you look at Wisconsin's offense, and it's like, you have a guy who was started a handful of games at Southern Illinois a year ago as your starting quarterback. But credit where credit's due. Carnell Tate, that first touchdown pass, it's not bad coverage. Matt Young and Austin Brown are there. It was a perfect throw and an unbelievable catch in the back of the end zone for that 33-yard touchdown. And then there's that other touchdown on the fade route, both third down plays, crushing, of course, because Wisconsin needed everything to go its way. But it did feel like Sain just had all the time in the world. And it's not like there were a bunch of long bombs. The first one to take, yes, but just throw it over the middle for short yardage. And I don't know if just everybody was playing off for the big play, but they could do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And you look statistically, and Ohio State put up massive amount of yards, almost 400 yards passing. So the good moments were certainly outshined by how many times Ohio State just went right down the field. I will say 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. And the defense at least hung tough as well as they could, because it could have been 40-0 at the half, and it wasn't. That's a minor positive, but Ohio State just, I mean, there's a reason why they're number one team in the country and have played as well as they have. They looked like it because Wisconsin needed Ohio State to show up sleepwalking, and that's not what happened.
It didn't. It's not like I don't think Ohio State played amazing by any stretch. I don't think that was their A game. But yes, they have a whole bunch more talent. They have a whole bunch better. I mean, they're better coached, certainly, and you just put it all together. It's just that's Ohio State, and we know what Ohio State is, and we know what they are almost every year. They're the defending national champs. They may be even better this year than they were last year, and they're going to be right there at the end. And you were expecting what happened yesterday. It's just, it still just boggles my mind that it's not even competitive. They have not been competitive at all this year outside of the Michigan game. And even that, Michigan put up 400 and plus yards of offense and really, dominated after the first drive that Wisconsin had. So, I mean, you look at Wisconsin's offense and the drives that they've had since that touchdown drive, and it's just been a field goal and that's it. It's just as anemic as it gets. And yes, they're on their third quarterback. Yes, they're on a bunch of different guys. But I mean, to be that bad, that consistently is just insane to me. They are now only two teams are averaging fewer points than them in the country. That'd be Northern Illinois and Massachusetts. And I would expect that number to continue to drop. They're averaging 13.3 points per game. Would you like to revise your overreaction or no, or on whether they're going to be the first Wisconsin team to average in single digits in, I think, since 1988?
I'm not going to revise it. I think it might be close, but
it's no longer.
The 42 points against Middle Tennessee gave them a cushion to work with the rest of the way. But of course, hard to have any optimism whatsoever. We said this a few weeks ago. Like, you looked at this schedule and the way Wisconsin was playing and tell me where the wins or a win are going to come from. Can't say there's any left.
But it's not wins. I mean,
competitive. Yeah, that's fair too. They're not even close.
Score points. Put something on the board. And I think there were some people that were upset they didn't kick the field goal at the end there, instead of, going for it on 4th and 5 just to, kick the field goal so that you're not getting shut out. But people would have called Luke Fickell a quitter if he had not gone for it on 4th and 5. Saw other people saying he needs to take any points he can possibly get just for the looks of it. We don't know. People are coming from this. Everyone believes they have the answer, and I don't think anybody has the answer. And I don't fire everybody is certainly a choice, but I don't know if that's the choice that is going to fix it either, because who knows what comes next. But that said, we do need to at least address some of the reporting from Colton Bartholomew after the game. Was learned that Chris McIntosh spoke with the team this week to say that Luke Fickell's not going anywhere and that he is going to be their coach. I know that some players were asked about it afterwards, and I don't know like what that does for this team. And I also, if that ends up being the case, I don't want to know what the stadium looks like next year. The amount of people not renewing there has to be something else to this. And I know that there are some rumors otherwise about exactly how they were going to approach this. There's been no facts out there on that just yet, so it's a little bit difficult to talk about. But the fact that that he's in the locker room saying that Luke Fickell's going to be back, doing that before you see the rest of this year seems a little bit early for me. And I don't know what he's seen from Luke Fickell to suggest that he should get another year. And it boggles the mind why you would go ahead and do that, other than try and keep the team together. But I feel like that's kind of irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if that is in fact true, it certainly helps the staff and Luke Fickell not go every week wondering what is my place here. And if you're gonna cut bait, then get rid of me. And for players, maybe some peace of mind. But when we get to the transfer portal window, going to be a bunch of dudes enter. And that's not unique to Wisconsin, but I don't think that news is going to change a ton. There are some people who are Fickell's guys and were recruited and certainly spoke to that after the game. I just externally, how can people have optimism in what year 4 would look like? You're going to need a different team. Yes, having healthy bodies helps. But as you said, even if that were the case, I don't know that Wisconsin would be in a position to be in the upper half of the Big Ten. I just don't. So it's a difficult spot for everybody to be in. And it's possible that it gets worse this season. They're about to go to Oregon, which hammered Rutgers at Rutgers 56-10. You've still got to play Indiana, Illinois, and Washington and Minnesota. And so I don't know, maybe it provides a little peace of mind, but we also aren't necessarily privy to the full plan at this point. But I suppose what's the alternative? You don't say anything and you get rid of everybody. And if it doesn't happen now and it doesn't work next year, it's going to happen next year. So maybe you just feel like giving one extra year to change something will make a difference. It's just, again, externally, where would that optimism come from based on everything we've seen? They're 8-14 in the Big Ten since Luke got here.
There's been nothing to point to and grab onto and say this is what it's going to be. I will say that his tone in the post-game press conference was significantly different than last week.
Yes.
I thought he was a lot more upbeat. He was a lot more positive. And maybe that's because he felt like he was dead man walking last week, and this week because of Chris McIntosh differently. But Chris McIntosh 3 weeks ago gave him a vote of confidence and that he is going to be the guy. And I'm not worried about that at all. And the things that you hear and the things that we all see, fans included, just suggest that just doesn't make sense to continue down this road. And it's not going to get better. And I think we can all agree with that. Like, maybe Billy Edwards comes back at the end of the year and you have your starting quarterback for the last 3 games or something like that. I don't know, 2 games, and maybe you're able to beat Minnesota. Who knows? They just went and beat Nebraska. Like, again, Wisconsin is right there with Purdue as the worst team in the conference, and they have not gotten better under Luke. They've shown no signs of being able to get better under Luke this year, and to continue to go down that road with him makes very little sense. I understand where Chris McIntosh is coming from, but I also understand Chris McIntosh's point of view. He's the one that did this. He's the one that went Luke Fickell instead of Jim Leonhard or anybody else. He went Luke Fickell. He went outside of what, Wisconsin had been. Apparently totally forgot about the Gary Anderson era. Now, again, when Luke Fickell was hired, almost everybody thought it was a a grand slam, right?
We did too. We at the time
I have no problem. I have no problem admitting that.
Yes.
Guess what? I was wrong. However, not my job to hire the head coach at University of Wisconsin. That's Chris McIntosh's job, and he has to be held accountable for that. And he should not be able to allow then to make. If he holds on to Fickell, it means he can't go and screw up the next hire. I guess maybe that's a positive if you're looking for some kind of positive. But yeah, of course. But that's not my job. That's not my job. I don't get paid the millions of dollars that Chris McIntosh does to make that hire. So it's a stupid argument. Oh, everyone thought it was a great hire. Yeah, sure. But it wasn't our job to make the hire. We aren't the ones that were required to go and do the homework and look into exactly why he was so successful at Cincinnati. Was it because he had a ridiculous staff around him? We've seen what that staff is doing not in all of the staff, but quite a few of them is doing at Notre Dame. We know that a lot of success came from those guys. So did Chris McIntosh just say, no, this is all Luke Fickell? And maybe he did. But that's not, again, it's not my job. It's not. I get to sit here and say, yes, I was wrong, but I wasn't the one that made the hire. And that's what means I'm not the one that's responsible for it. That's Chris McIntosh. It's it's a ridiculous thing to say, well, everyone thought it was good, so why you can't really take issue with it. Bullshit. I can take issue with it. I just did.
I also think, to get back to the conversation with the players, you would think that there's got to be a level of alignment from the top down. You don't make that decision unless there have been internal conversations about whatever the future may hold. But again, how do you sell that? How do you? I would think so. I would think so.
You think he had a conversation with Jennifer Manuka before he went in there?
I don't know. I don't know how you could go into a meeting like that and make a declaration without external conversations about the future for this program, because it carries the water for all these other programs. But again, whatever's happening internally, I don't know how you sell that to everybody else when you've seen the product. And go back to the hope is not a method. Like, that's all anyone has to hang their hat on. And there's no reason to have that right now. And look, every year the roster is markedly different. You bring in 15 to 20 recruits, you probably have 20 transfers, but how can you feel confident that it's going to be any different? Because it just hasn't been to date.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they'll sell it. Like 10% drop their season tickets. You can invest in the transfer portal. You can invest in recruiting. All that money doesn't mean a thing if you can't coach. And I'm not saying that Luke Fickell is a horrible coach. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that he's shown no ability to get the best out of the players that he has. And he is the one that talks about how he grades coaches are you getting better? Are you getting more out of them than what their God-given ability allows? And I would suggest, again, recruiting rankings are what they are, but they touted these recruiting rankings. They touted the transfers and some of the stuff that they brought in. And have they been able to get the best out of those guys? Are they playing above what their God-given ability is? And I would say that there's no way anybody could say yes to that. So again, it's a young team in some respects with some of the recruiting classes the last 2 years, but coaches have to coach up everybody. And I don't think they're getting the best out of guys. I don't think that they're getting better than what some of the talent is. And maybe that's overrating Wisconsin's talent a little bit. I don't know, but they're not. And that's his own measurement. And he is not living up to that measurement at this point. So, do you want to get into some listener questions here?
Yeah, let's do it. I think we've covered some big picture what went wrong, and this won't be the last time we have this conversation.
It won't be. It was a new record yesterday. I was able to send out the question, the tweet for questions after the first touchdown. So that was new. I may do it before kickoff next week. We'll see. Uh, Overreaction or no? To stick on this topic of Fickell a little bit. If the rumors of Fickell returning in 2026 are true, it'll do more long-term damage to the program than just paying the buyout now.
Really good question. And I don't think that's an overreaction. I don't, because again, we can't predict the future, but what is going to be different next year, and what would so-called success look like? And ultimately, progress is measured differently now because they're so bad. It's, can you be competitive? But what record would you need to have to feel like that's the move for the future? On the other hand, I see both sides of this, because you can become what Nebraska was before Matt Rule, in that it felt like a turnstile. Every 3 or 4 years, you're restarting the thing, and nobody knows whether a hire is going to work out. I know every time we talk about Luke, someone brings up Kurt Signetti at Indiana. Well, that, expecting that to be the norm is a fool's errand, I think. I mean, that's the outlier. And so I see both sides of it, but I also think that that's not an unreasonable question to ask when all you have to base it on is the product on the field to date. And tell me why it's going to be different, and what would you need to see to think it's going to last beyond year 4?
Teddy Badger says, overreaction or no, Luke Fickell will be the coach next year, but neither coordinators will be on his staff.
I think that's an overreaction. I look at it mostly as the offensive coordinator side. You just brought Jeff Grimes in. You've already swung and missed on one offensive coordinator. And I'm not defending Jeff Grimes here, because the offense has been atrocious. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries, but there's so many issues at play. But if you're going to ask me about both coordinators, I think you're not going to get rid of both of them, assuming you're still here next year.
Mike Tressel and him are joined at the hip. So
They are.
I think that is, I know a lot of people would like that to be the move. I guess I'd be surprised if that were ever the move. Then again, Paul Christ and Joe Rudolph were connected at the hip, and we know how that ended. So overreaction, no. Chris says Badgers have 3 or fewer touchdowns the rest of the year.
Total in 5 games.
3 feels a little much.
I mean, again, I can't disagree with the premise of the question. Will they get 3 touchdowns in 5 games? I have no reason to believe this, but I might say 3 is the highest I'm willing to go. So I'll take the over with 0 confidence.
So the scoring defenses they play: Indiana ranked 4th in the country, Oregon ranked 8th in the country, Washington 37th, Minnesota 27th, and Illinois 77th. So of those, and I feel like Illinois is still reeling from the 60 spot that Indiana put on them, but that to me doesn't suggest a lot of points for Wisconsin.
No.
And 3 touchdown feels like a little bit much to think that they're going to score that. I know that sounds horrible. Jesse, have you watched the last 2 weeks? Have you watched this season? Have you watched this season? What makes you think that they're going to score touchdowns?
I'm not sitting here saying they're going to average 20 points a game. I'm just 3 touchdowns in 5 games. I said 3 was the maximum that I'd be willing to go.
They've got 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games.
Yeah, it's horrible.
We do sit next to each other. Are we watching the same stuff? Like, they crossed midfield like twice yesterday. I think, 3 times the last 2 games?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting here pretending they're good. You set the bar extremely low, and I said the highest I'm willing to go is whatever that bar is, which is very low.
Kevin says, legitimate question for the both of us. If leadership doesn't care, why should we? I turned it off before the 4th quarter, and I might not watch another game this year. I was listening to the broadcast at one point, and even Matt and Mark were talking about how bad it is.
Well, so 2 different things. I'm not going to sit here and say leadership doesn't care, but you have every right as a fan to not give a damn right now. It's your time when you're showing up. It's your money. And if you want to save yourself the heartache or stress of having to watch the product right now, that's your right. I thought it was interesting when Luke was asked about his message to fans. One of the things he said was, when we win, they'll come back. Um, maybe. I mean,
They will. If they win games, they will. I mean, that's same thing happened in the 90s. Like when Barry Alvarez started turning around the program and they started winning games, people started coming back. That's just they want to watch winning football. I think
yes.
I think that they would also support competitive football, and this team has not given them that.
My question is, will that winning happen when Luke is still here? I mean, I struggle to answer that in the affirmative, but if and when something were to change, that is the beauty of college football, is that hope does spring eternal if you get to a new regime. And so people who are apathetic, I think, would be more apt to come back. But yeah, I mean, if you win, certainly people are more interested. But I don't know why fans, unless you're just an ardent supporter through thick and thin, and there are a lot of those people in all sports, you have every right to do something else with your Saturday.
There's a question here that I think maybe we tackle this week. What would you do to fix the program with the current team this season? Maybe we tackle that on Tuesday. I don't know. That's a question that can be answered. I think the issues with them are both personnel related, heavily personnel related, but also team is why, scheme is why as well. Injuries. Again, I think personnel is as big of an issue as all of them. See, I could have gone this one. Badger Beatdown says Badgers won't score another touchdown on offense the rest of the season. That might have been that might be an overreaction, but
somewhere between 0 and 3 is where we're at.
Overreaction, no. Carter Smith starts the last 3 games of the season, keeps his red shirt.
Overreaction. Look, whoever doesn't play at quarterback is always the person that's discussed most. And we haven't seen practice since August. But I would also say, if he was in a position to contribute right now, I think he'd be in the conversation, because this staff is not in a position, in college football and probably college athletics in general is not really in a position, as Luke has said, to be worrying about red shirts. He was asked that question earlier in the week about other people. If you've got somebody who's capable of contributing now, you put them out there. And that's not to say that Carter doesn't have a bunch of talent and upside, but right now, as a true freshman, I do think it says something that's not even a discussion, that you've got Hunter Simmons and Danny O'Neal, granted with more experience, they're putting out there, and it doesn't matter how bad the product is, there is no thought in moving on to anybody else.
Raymond says, how is it playing tough or nasty to always kneel out first halves with 1+ minute left? They didn't kneel it out, they ran it out, but
what yard line did they have the ball at that time?
I mean, they were deep in their own territory, but I was told they had nothing to lose.
I don't know. There's so many issues that we've addressed. I just don't even know how much I care about this. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to matter. They can't move the football. I don't care where you put them. Sure, we want to make an argument they should air it out. Can't tell me it was going to be completed anyway. How's that for apathetic?
I mean, that is apathetic, but it's not really about you or about the fans. It's about Luke Fickell and his decision to that. And he has said he has no quit in him, and they had nothing to lose this week. And it certainly seemed like they had something to lose there. I don't know if they were just trying to get the half down 20-0, or 17-0, but I guess. And also got nothing to lose, but not going for it on fourth and 1 at your own, 35 on that first drive. A lot of people are upset with that as well. Again, you can't talk about having nothing to lose, and it's not like you have to play stupid. You're not that, like, you can't. You have to still run the game like you're going to run the game. But They didn't play like a team that he didn't coach like a team that had nothing to lose.
You want to see the difference in a confident team, and I get it's apples to oranges because Ohio State is on a totally different level, but they just did whatever they wanted. They went for it on fourth down at their own 26-yard line. Ryan Day started calling timeouts and they only had 2 timeouts left, but it was just, okay, maybe we'll block the punt. Maybe we'll house this.
They almost did.
Yeah, you do that because you are a tremendously confident team, and you also have, I'm not going to say no respect for the opponent, but no fear that they're going to be able to do anything. So, yeah, there's a difference, but Ohio State's also a hell of a lot better.
What else we got here? Is this offense worse than the Brian Ferentz-led Iowa offenses?
Well, I'm glad they didn't have a slogan about a drive for 325 because that ain't going to happen.
That would have been tough.
Yeah.
That would have been tough. Let me go see the last. That would have been 2022.
I don't remember, man. They had a lot of bad years offensively.
Iowa.
But at least they played good defense.
In 2022, they averaged 17 points a game. So that's way above what Wisconsin's doing right now. So, yeah, worse than that offense. There were some other offenses that were really bad. I just trying to remember what the drive for 25, what year that was. I'm pretty sure it was 2023. They averaged 15 points a game that year, which was second worst in the country, but also better than Wisconsin. So, yes, I would say Iowa's offenses under Brian Ferentz are better than Wisconsin's right now.
Yep.
Fair? Yes. Oh, we probably do need to mention the scout thing. There was a guy during the game, I think it was Brugler. Was he at The Athletic?
Yes.
He tweeted out that he was talking about how Luke Fickell would not allow NFL scouts to watch practice, and keeping them out in the games are the only time that they have a chance to watch them. And it sounded like Luke said that there have been times where they limit just because for whatever reason they keep guys from watching the entire practice on a Wednesday, but they do let guys in whenever they want. The facility's open. We see it down in Platteville every year, and during spring practice and during fall camp, that they have scouts there all the time. So that felt a little weird, but it apparently is not true. Did I get that accurate? Is that accurate? What I said?
I think so. It certainly caused a fervor on social media, but clearly, even Luke's response, it felt like a pretty uninformed take.
Yes.
I don't think Luke has any. I mean, Luke's got a hell of a lot else to worry about. I don't think he's got any reason to sit up there and not tell us the truth. And he just seemed kind of dumbfounded about it. And if you're just going to be reasonable, that would make no sense. Why would you do that? You're hurting your own players. You can't say it's a distraction because they're not good, no matter who's there or not, right? You want to give people a chance to be seen. And yeah, the next question would be, well, how many draftable guys are there? Well, there's also undrafted free agents and those kinds of things. We've seen Wisconsin players in the past have that success. So that felt to me like it was quashed pretty quickly.
A lot of shots at the UW Chancellor this weekend, this week as well. Dylan says, will the Badgers ever be a winning program again with UW Chancellor at the helm? Giving Fickell another year is insulting.
I guess I'm not as honestly, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm super informed about people are upset and they want to direct their anger somewhere. And now it's risen to chancellor levels. I guess what is out there that suggests she doesn't support football? Because I know that's been a talking point elsewhere.
What was I don't think I can actually share the exact message, but it was anti-football cat, I believe is what we'll go with there.
It's just nonsense and directed somewhere that I just befuddling to me, but I get people are frustrated and they want to direct their anger somewhere. There's obviously a lot of factors at play, but I don't know, man. Just the football product and what's happening there is just so bad. I guess that's more where my focus lies.
This is a very tough one for me. But you pointed it out yesterday, and
I did.
you wanted it, which meant you wanted it asked, so I will ask it. Overreaction or no, PJ Fleck would have been a better hire than Fickell.
Well, I know this was why this was asked, because of your affinity for PJ Fleck. You can't tell me it'd be worse. I'll let you take the floor here, but you sure as hell can't tell me it would be worse.
Actual on-field football.
Yep.
It's not an overreaction. I mean, just look what has happened to Wisconsin's program. Meanwhile, Minnesota has not had a ton of success, but at this point, would Wisconsin take what Minnesota has done? I think they would. They went and beat a top 25 team, something Wisconsin hasn't done since 2021. So, yeah, I mean, it's not an overreaction for the on-the-field thing. It's an absolutely overreaction for the off-the-field stuff. Everyone can talk about the team jacket and being all upset about the team jacket. That dude has one acronym. I'm talking about Luke Fickell. PJ has 25 of them. They're in a book that he makes the players memorize before they even go on the field and practice. It's a cult. It's a cult up there. And so off the field, absolutely it would be an overreaction. He would be a horrible, horrible fit at Wisconsin for a variety of reasons, mainly because I would have to deal with him on a regular basis. And that's not something I want to do. So yeah, huge overreaction that he would have been a better fit off the field than Fick. Even though Luke has not been great off the field either. So, all right, we got a few more here. Big picture. When will somebody be able to watch a new coach? If it's not going to be this year, and they're telling people it's not going to be next year, when will it be? In the middle of next year? Will it be 2027? When's it going to be?
Well, if it's not going to be this year, yeah, I mean, either next year or the one after. Like, again, I don't know how this changes to a level that is satisfactory. And maybe they have a plan internally that we're not privy to, but I'm not gonna pretend like they've got any answers, because if they did, something would be different now. I don't have much optimism right now, and I think I speak for most people, because what have you done for this program? You are not better in most or any areas really from when you got here. And why is that going to be different? I just don't see it.
Probably should have ended on the PJ one, but the Bertrams, let's do that. Tim says, is Bertram's hurt or just fatigued? Of the last 31 offensive possessions, there have been one field goal, and the other 30 have resulted in punts, turnovers, turnover rundowns, or the end of the game. What was the talk about? What did Fickell say about that?
I think it has more to do with whatever. Well, he hinted at, I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know if it was just a decision based on productivity or something else, but can't deny what Sean West did. Went out there and did his job. The first one was a bit shaky, got a nice roll, but he boomed one that was, I mean, it went into the end zone, but it was like 65, 70 yards. So he went and did his job and more, because he apparently just did something on his own and converted the fake. And that was the best play Wisconsin had all day.
He said, side note, Sean West for running back 5.
Maybe.
A lot of people have pointed to that fake punt and him just doing it on his own as something as if Luke Fickell has lost the locker room and he just did it on his own and he went rogue. And it sounded like, yes, it wasn't called, but this is what Luke Fickell said. He said, we were talking about some things. Obviously, we needed to try and find ways to spark it. That was not something that we called. We were talking about something very similar, but it's a case of a guy making a play.
So he may have misinterpreted whatever the discussion was on the sideline, but not a big deal.
No, it's not. He said But he did say, to be honest with you, I was still hoping he was going to punt that thing because there were like 15 more yards to go, and it didn't look good against Iowa, and did not look good against two of Ohio State's better special teams players. All right, I think we're good for the day. We'll get back here on Tuesday and look ahead to Oregon and maybe some more big picture questions. I certainly think the conversation that Chris McIntosh had with the players is something that will be asked of Luke Fickell on Monday, because it is I think that's a significant development in this. And again, some of the other rumors that are out there about some of the money that's going to be thrown into the program don't have real figures on that, and so it's a little bit difficult to talk about it. But anything that still has Luke Fickell as the coach, I think it's going to be very tough to sell, both to myself, but also to the fan base, and it's going to be a very tough scene in that stadium for a while if that ends up being the case. So we'll see how it all plays out. Jesse, have a good Sunday. We'll talk on Tuesday.
Thanks, Zach. Talk soon.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Camp.